Oh, oops, hold on. Okay, gonna cheese you, hon. Okay, it's a day of technological challenges for me. I was just showing notes on the wrong screen, and I walked to class and forgot my computer. And we got two new little devices in here, which I might try today, but then if I'm already technologically challenged, maybe I'll wait till next week. One Corinthians ya aya na teacher hakusi. Actually, ḵulagaaw wu aya hat. Actually, data yukhutanen ziyak. Take the hinoe shanaksai kakakon ish. Has to in yejechuni. Yeah, wachana kawani just achuk yuchatung. Yeah, hatuasagot at tushuk. Actually, achina kawani yata shakshani owe. Yeah, ya ach hunkian kanian. Ujin yuchatisha at the katuhan sha owe uhan. Kainach hachuni duchuch. We chawush aya atunach yaudza'a. Kai ye awe ye yausaka. Yingewene afterwasiku dachach adi. Shetza kundi hinsa chawush tunach yauz ayin. Who away su achewawus. Yingewene. Aka awe de chunkiyan. Hasa yausa. Yes. Shetza a chuchtin. Ḳulagaaw. So we were looking at some verbs here on the screen, and I'll translate what I just said, which is we like to have peace, hayet, but sometimes life gets a little wild and it's fighting time. And so there is an elder that I used to work with a lot. Her name was Shekshani Marge Detson. And there was another elder. We were a team. His name was ḳoon Ish. And we worked together a lot. And sometimes we just tell stories and just kind of have fun. We like to laugh a lot. And she was telling us there was a group of her friends, and they're all ladies, and they're hanging out, just having fun, visiting. And then one of the friends, her husband poked his head through the doorway and said, "Are you ready yet? I want to go." And she said, "Just hold up." And then he kept coming in. "Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?" And how many times did he do this when she turned to her friends and said, "Shetze, achuchtin ḳulagaaw, akachuchte ḳulagaaw." She said, "Hold on. I want to go fight with my husband and then I'll be back." And so it was fun. Sometimes it's fun, it's joking, it's teasing. Other times it's not, although I do have a friend, we speak Tlingit with each other a lot. And just out of nowhere, he sends me this. I hadn't gotten a text from him in a long time. And we text in Tlingit, and I get this text that says, "Ye awechoach wechakan, ikachwehi tunach aya ye andegan." So I texted back, "Wush kunach tushka." So he texts back, "Hakde." So it's out of the blue. He sends me this text message that says, "I heard the sun shines through your coffee." So then I said, "Let's fight." Because I was insulted because I make strong coffee. And then he said, "Hakde," which is get over here right now. So, but we're just teasing each other. But we were going over some of these verbs. If folks have questions, we'll just take a look at this stuff. Because we had talked about this on Tuesday. We're not encouraging fighting, but sometimes fights happen. And sometimes you tease each other with this kind of stuff too. So there's these kind of verbs, ḳulagaaw and ḳulaha. I had to look at them a little bit more, but I think of ḳulagaaw as like a battle or a war. So when you say achin ḳulagaaw, I think of it as like let's start something until it finishes. That's how I kind of think of it, right? That's how those things often work. And then, and so ḵulagaaw would be a command to say, battle with me. And then xuлагaaw, let's battle each other. Fight me or maybe wrestle me. Attack me. So is, the verb root here is good, which is walking. And then it has to do with like, then you see hands kind of on the front. So it's like, you're gonna walk with these hands kind of. Oh, that's how it seems to work. I will dominate you. And then, oops, what's going on here? There's a Q in there for some. Wash is a verb root to hit something with a closed hand. But that also means drumming, stabbing, punching. So if you say ayak wagwash, should be one word, that is, I am going to punch you in the face. And ayak wagaj, I am going to slap you in the face. So don't hit people, but here's some verbs that say, talk about hitting people. Let's see. Yeah, so the gouache could also be, well, let's go. So sometimes we want to take a deeper dive into some of this stuff. So like once you're beyond the beginning level, when you start to sort of look into stuff in Tlingit, you could start to look up the verb root. And we'll actually start somewhere. We will start here. Hold on. Switch sources. Oops. So we're going to start with the verb dictionary. So if you hear someone say something with gouache in it, if someone says, gouache, you'll say, well, hold on. Let me look up that verb. And you pull out your dictionary. You have stall tactics. And so you're going to go look for gouache, right? So if you see, well, if you hear this, like what we're going to be working on is tuning our ears and also looking, when we look at it and when we hear it, we should start getting pretty good at spotting the verb root. So the verb root is often the last thing you hear, but there could be a suffix on there. A suffix means that there'd be something right after here, like a CH or a IN, or, you know, there's quite a few suffixes in Tlingit, but they are less common than the prefix. So the prefix is everything before the verb root. The suffix is everything after the verb root. So here the verb root is gouache. So what we'll do is we'll look this up in the Verb Dictionary, everybody's favorite book. So for here, we're going to open the section that says Tlingit to English. On the sides there, it's alphabetized. Again, it goes front of the lips to the back of the throat. That's how they alphabetize this. It's not A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So we'll go down to GW, and then we get guaz, fog, gouache, to hop on one leg, gouache, to roll, gouache, to beat, knock. So this is the one, right? So you see beat, ring, stab, knock. So like to knock on a door. That's gonna be a ḵulagaaw, a ḵulagaaw. And then stab, hit with the fist. And then ylagaaw is to beat up or to hit in the face. So that gives us some. And then we'll take a look at one other source. So now we'll go into the Verb Database, which is here, and we're going to scroll down. This is alphabetized, like A, B, C, D, kind of follows an English alphabet. We're going to go look for gouache right here, and we get same thing, beat, ring, stab, punching in the face. We also have for something to ring. So gouache would be the telephone is ringing, the bell is ringing. it literally says it's hitting itself, right? Because you think of like an old school alarm clock with the two bells on it and a little hammer that goes ding a ling. It's like it's hitting itself, right? That's what it says. But it's also, it just means to ring. So something is ringing, especially a bell, or a telephone. So the nice thing about this database is if you sort of say, okay, we get some face punching to do, we better look at my vocabulary. So someone says, yak you're like, well, hold on, let me go look it up. So then you can hit on this yellow, and every yellow line here is a different verb. There are 3 verbs listed under the gouache verb root. We'll look at this one. Yakwash. There's your command form, right? Or if we're being peaceful people, don't hit them in the face. Yahwakwash did it. Didn't do it. Yakwakwash. Oh, here's that yakwakwash. I will hit them in the face. But we put it right in front of it for you. And now we're like, oh no, I know what they said. I must raise my defenses, right? Okay. Oh, and in the chat, someone wanted this phrase. This is how I remember it. You might have said it a little bit different, but this was the fighting phrase for me. So it was like, yay away. This is how I heard it. Bakan. Ikha. Weyi. Tunach. Yay undagan. I heard the I heard the sun shines through your coffee. Just out of nowhere. Okay, anyways. So we're going to start going through the beginning Tlingit workbook. Any other questions or stuff you're thinking about before we get into that?
I have a question about the possessive parts of an animal. We're doing a lesson we had worked on with elders several years ago, and as I've come back to it to work with the kids, I realized I was kind of confused again about the way to do this with kids. And I don't know if that's something to wait for till later or if it would take too much time right now.
Okay, let me put something together real quick.
And I can show you a picture of like what we were talking about, if that, or hold up a picture. It's easier. Okay. So we're learning about moose, and we just did moose camp. And so we're trying to teach kids the difference. Like I made a puzzle that had just like the not possessed form of the body parts. So they're like scattered around in these puzzle pieces. And then when we put them together, then on the other side, it has how you'd actually refer to it as the moose's body part. And I feel like, so it would be more like that. Like those are the words we would use. And so I feel like I just got really confused about how that's supposed to work. And my notes didn't make sense to me anymore.
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so we've got, we will get to how to make the possessive, but basically it does exist in these examples, right? So everybody say, achjin, achjin, kajin, kajin, kajini, kajini, ach, ach, Heat, ooh. Heat, ooh. Heat, ooh. Heat, ooh. Okay, so I'm not saying anything about right and wrong here, but this is how I believe it works. Things that have a relational pronoun before it, like my, your, their, our, the noun will get a possessive suffix on it, or a relational suffix, whatever we want to call it. But body parts do not follow this rule, because body parts have to belong to another noun. So when we're going through this with elders, I said, so you can't just say jinn? And they said, no. I said, well, what if you came into a room and there's like a hand in there, which would be strange, but you couldn't just say jinn? And they said, no, that's somebody's hand, and so when something gets removed, a body part gets removed, it gains that suffix, right? So this is it's an unusual thing, because usually the possessive marker goes on there, right? If we did this, like here's an example. I'll just use my name. So I'll say Lance's hand. Like that's how Tlingit would take care of body parts. But then if it got removed, or let me just use the dog example. So I would say dog hand. And then I would say dog's hand. And what that means, Ishan Kate Naskiti Husia. That poor doggy, it's a three-legged dog now, but that means it's off. It has been separated. So usually if you get in the possessive marker on a body part, it's been separated. I do think there's confusion with this, because most of the time when we talk about animal body parts, it's been butchered, or it's like look at this killer whale tooth I found on the beach. It's not connected, so that becomes keet uchu. And when we name our clan houses, they almost always have that possessive marker on them. There are some that are a little bit confusing to me, like kitsch and kiji. I do not really hear kitsch, like yech kitsch, but maybe. So it's a line where there is a little bit of confusion and gray area, but my recommendation would be, if you're showing a picture of a moose with all the parts intact, they would all not have the possessive marker. But if you had a picture and you said, look at this, here's the hind quarter, we took it off, we're going to butcher it, because you're teaching about how to butcher an animal, then it should have that possessive marker on there.
Ḥune, is it the difference between that moose's hind quarter and a hind quarter of a moose, like any moose?
It just has to do with whether it's still connected to the body. Like for example, people walk around with like a rabbit's foot, right? And I think it's probably one of the front feet, right? Because in Tlingit, that's a jin. And then you got a chus, right? Because like, here's another difference. In English, if it walks on all fours, you call them all feet, right? Or paws, I don't know. But do you say like bare hands? People don't usually say that, right? But Tlingit, we would. We'd say it has hands and feet because it stands up. And when it stands up, it's on its feet. And it grabs things, and what grabs things with the hands? Fool. So if I said I've got gachjin around my neck, that means I've got a necklace tied to a rabbit's hand and then a rabbit dangling there. But if you say gachjini, now I've cut it off. So usually it's talking about a separation. It has been cut off, removed, eye popped out, waqi. That's what it means. Possessive marker means it's been removed. We'll get to that. I know this. We do question and answer. I think it's great, and we'll get to all of this stuff too.
But I have a kind of random question.
Okay.
To do with this though. Hear me out. So what would we call? Like it, no, thing in the Adam's family, there's the hand that walks around.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so what would we call the hand that is a creature itself, but is a hand?
I would call it either a Ginny or ut Ginny. So ut Ginny would be its hand, and it's a non-human thing. So is another area that does, there's a little bit of flexibility there. Technically, non-human things, we should be using up. But if your doggy is a person to you, that's fine, I don't care. And there's a whole bunch of stories where they're talking about, when the story is like if it's Raven and then all these birds, they're treated just like human beings. It'll be do all the time. And then ut Ginny would probably be better because that's something's hand. So that's what I'd probably call, because I did try that. Because like, what if we came into a room, there's a hand, and they said, well, that's someone's hand. I was like, what if like a spirit hand floated in here? And they said, stop. So I stopped.
You were scaring them.
That's right. Okay. See your hand up, Masa.
Wouldn't it could also be like do Ginny then maybe? I mean, because if it's someone's hand and it's his or her hand, whatever it is.
See, because
You're kind of.
the little hand that walks around in that Adam's family, was it?
Yeah.
Was it the Munster? It was Adam's family? It's a whole creature, right? I don't know if there's any backstory. If there was a backstory behind it where there was a person named Bob and they lost their hand and it came to life, that's Bob's hand, then it would be Duchini. If we said that's something's hand and we think that thing is not human because the hand is still moving, like a weird thing, so that would probably be a Ginny. But then Ginny is a little bit more mysterious, which I think works for me because it's like the hand of something. Okay. It's an interesting start to class. Okay. Well, the thing is like the hairy one, right?
Cousin.
Oh, that's cousin it.
Yeah,
The hand is thing.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. So now how do we talk about getting into a fight with a thing hand? No, I'm kidding.
Ah,
I'm just
Ginny
kidding.
ḵulagaaw. I got into a fight with this something's hand. Yes, and we do have we have done lessons with stuff like this before, and some of those lessons have, like someone did one and they showed like bloody hands and stuff like that. And then someone was messaging me and saying, my brother just got murdered. Can we not show pictures of bloody things? So also like we have fun, but also if we're going too far, you can send me a direct message. But some of this stuff is important because where it relates to is working on foods. That's a lot of it. And also like there's usually some story behind why a clan claims a particular thing. And it could be there's a crest with a bear with hands that are not connected because it's a spirit bear. Okay, any other like non-violent questions? We're good. Donna Keith.
So if your hand were to fall off, would I say ach Ginny?
Yes.
Ah.
Okay.
It was called thing.
Yeah.
It's not it. It is the hair.
Right. Oh, so thing.
Thing is the hand.
That so you would have ut and ut Ginny. So ut I think would be the hairy thing because ut is a thing. Okay. Well, I guess we're nearing, I have a coworker and Halloween, what do you call them? Decorations are already up. Okay. Okay, Johan. So let me move this. Which screen is it? Okay. So on to beginning Tlingit. We're gonna go through the first couple of chapters pretty fast, just because it's a review. The intention here is just to warm up and also just make sure, is there anything in here that you're unsure about as we sort of review it? Every chapter begins with a quotation. Then they would let their downfall like grief like snow over the person who is feeling grief. Away is the contraction of adach away, which is sort of saying following that. So this is, of course, a much longer speech. We have the audio to this speech. It's given by Natla. It's recorded by Kahani Rosita Worrell. And this was the very first piece of Tlingit oratory that was ever fully transcribed and translated by Ḳochne Nora Dowenhauer and Quaynaq Richard Dowenhauer. Hasdu is a plural possessive. Them alls is. Ḳwāt is downy feathers. This is a possessive marker right here. Aweh. You'll learn how to use aweh if you haven't worked on that already. It sometimes just provides a separation between thoughts. Akade, onto it, going towards being on it. Has akushtanch, they pile it up all the time. We ishandain tuwati ha, people who are feeling pitiful. Each of these also shows there's this thing we're going to be doing after a while where we will pull things apart to see what's in there. So this is a third language that's a bridge between English and Tlingit. And it's up to you how far you want to go with this third language. It's linguistics, where we pull this apart and say, here's all the pieces that are there. And then underneath that is the meaning of each of those pieces. So it does there's a bunch of stuff in here, and there's also a bunch of code, but that code makes sense once you learn what all the things are. And we're going to start building that up once we're done. We're going to move through the beginning Tlingit stuff. We might point a few more things out than you might have done in beginning Tlingit, because like, okay, remember you learned this phrase? Look at this thing. Here it is again. It's popping up again. But eventually you'll know what each of these things are doing. And then that way, the idea here is that you will know how to use them and when you should be using them. Okay, whoops, let me change this. Okay, so making the sounds. There are 16 Tlingit vowels. I like everyone to think of them as this. I would say there's 4 vowels in Tlingit, but each of them have 4 variations because they can move back and forth. There's sometimes where it's like, that's what it'll be. But there are situations where keet, high tone, long E, can become kit. That can happen, especially in a verb root, but it can also happen with nouns, right? So you'll see that te for rock right here can become te. It can go long, right? And most of this stuff is very predictable. Like almost all of Tlingit is predictable, but there's just quite a few things there, right? So going through these, we have the A, the E, the I, the U vowels. Each of them have short and long, high and low. So you've got to keep those straight so that as you're reading, as you're speaking, and if someone's talking and you're trying to write down what they say, you have to be able to eventually figure out what the vowel is that you're hearing. All right, so these ones, they go up. Go ahead. ah,
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 eh,
eh,
a, a,
eh,
I,
eh,
E, E, U, ooh, ooh. Now there is this O with the underline on it because that sound is O. And the high tone, O. You pretty much only hear that in Teslin, Carcross, ḳoon. Not as common in ḳoon anymore. The reason why we decided to put an underline there is because if there is a character with an underline on either side of this double O, in Teslin, especially in Carcross, it'll go from U to O, right? So for a box, anybody know how to say box in Tlingit? Not a Bentwood box, but just a box. Kook, right? Underline K, high tone O, O, K. Kook. When you go there, they say cloak. This is why.
That's
I'm
why
gonna
they say coqueton.
That's why they say coqueton. I thought it was a sliding thing. I thought something was influencing it. That's also why, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody's village, but they think the village of Tok sounds very funny because they say Tok, where we say toot for a butt. Okay. There are also the Y and the W. So if those two, if those go at the end of a vowel, what the Y does is you end up kind of smiling while you're saying it. So you say I, so you pull your lips back. And if you have the W, you push your lips forward. Ow, I, ow, I, ow. So that's how vowels work in Tlingit. So we have added some additional terminology here in case people don't want to say uvular and velar and dental. Was that a dental sound? Glottal. So we've got on the lips, behind the teeth, pizza burning zone, snoring zone, and in the throat. Color coded for your assistance. Coming down, so this shows, let's see if I can rotate that. Okay. So this shows from the front of the lips down into the throat. And then from top to bottom, we sort of say, how much is it stopping the sound, right? And so as we go through here, we'll just do all these, I think, like this. And we say da, ta, ta, glade, clay, su, at, zanti, sats, atsi, jan, chash, ak, gun, cost, ink. So some of the differences here, this top row, so this D sound and the T sound are the same. You're making the noise in the exact same method, but with the D, you're also using your vocal cords. So if you just put your fingers like at the base of your neck and make a T sound, like we'll go ta, da. So we go, or we'll just go T and D. D, d, d. So if you really pay attention, your mouth is doing the exact same thing, but then your vocal cords are like, oh yeah, I'm in there too. This is going to be important. You're going to have a T will sometimes turn to a D, a TL to a DL, a TS to a DZ, a CH to a J, a K to a G. You're going to see this stuff, right? You're going to learn the rules behind it. But what this chart is showing you is how these things are related. These bottom ones are the same sound as the middle, but now you're saying, so this says with vocal cords, without vocal cords, without lungs. Close your lungs, make the sound. You can make all of those sounds without taking a single, but you have to close the lungs completely. And that's how you end up getting those sounds. Going further along here, Guish, Quay, But Booch, Tuck, a taste. So they will say in the interior, Booch. Not necessarily in Atlan, though. The old speakers in Atlan would speak a Tlingit that was much more closer. Oina, ḳoon, Naat, Ye under wage. Okay. Kloos, Ook, Seek, Speak, Shaw, Kusha, Ag, Wasta, Un, Hot, On, Good, What, Hit. And then Masa, Walk, Nusk. This sound, so we'll write an N with an underline. Anybody know what that sound is? This word does not come from the Tlingit language, but it is used in Tlingit. It's the name of this fish, and it is delayi or delayi. Delayi. So if someone is using a voiced L, which doesn't exist in Tlingit, we do know of two speakers. One was my great-grandfather, Bert Dennis. One was a Chukin Shah named Susie James, who was a master storyteller. They both would regularly substitute the L, voiced L sound for an N sound. Like how you say octopus in Tlingit. Anybody know?
Knock.
Knock. So there's this part where someone's saying, come here, octopus, come here. And as she's telling the story, she goes, Hakulak, Hakulak. What? There's a, how do you say all of us? Anybody know?
Wuhan.
Yeah, so Wuhan or Wuhan. And my great-grandfather is a recording of him, and he says, Uhal ayah, Uhal ayah. So that's that underline N, very, very rare. Yak. New. So this, we will be using this as well. The ḵulagaaw, the Y with the two eyes on it, with the little dots over it. And that sometimes is documenting this nasal sound, right? So how do you tell multiple people to stand up? Anybody know that one?
Guy to knock.
Guy to knock. If you go to Teslin and they're commanding everyone to stand up, they're going to usually say ging to knock. You're going to hear that sound in there. They have retained this sound. So has some speakers in Carcross and ḳoon. Everywhere else, it's fallen out of use. But sometimes we will mark things with it to say, this could go, it could become either a W or a Y.
And they're all coming from the same place, right?
Yeah, so these, there's three things with the,
Changes,
what's that?
those sounds that have different inland, they're coming from the same place.
Yeah, that M, that O, and that Yes, those are all in the same place.
Or yeah, the underline N and it's N, la.
Yeah, but they
this-
only really say that for the name of this fish.
It's the same shape in the mouth.
Mhm. Although they would also, there's a bunch of things where people will have a phrase that's borrowed from English, and sometimes it's borrowed from English, like we take the meaning and then we create a Tlingit version of it. Like a lot of people say, "Yakei tutat, yakei titkasan, itach, yakei ḵoon." I don't think people said that kind of stuff a long time ago, but it's just borrowed from English as a concept, and there's nothing wrong with that. Other things, they'll borrow a whole word. So they'll say, do you need a ride? Some speakers in Tessin would say, "Live get a tinachiyati." So they'd say live for ride, which was interesting. Okay. Let's do, I had to kill off the masseuse. I had to kill it in this edition because nobody says masseuse. That's my favorite Tlingit joke. Okay, we'll do all these only once. And we have lots of strategies for if there's certain sounds you have a hard time with, we could talk about that. My primary recommendation at this point is to keep grinding and try to think about it less, but also focus on it at the same time. Okay. We'll do the sound with a single vowel, usually after it, but sometimes before. Wa. Wasus. Ma. Mush. Cha. Cheech. Cha. Cheat. Da. Da. Gla. Glade. Za. Zaid. Ja. Janmu. Jinmu. Shla. Shlush. Shla. Shug. Na. Nusk. Sa. Seek. Sa. Speak. Sha. Sha. Ta. Tia. Ta. Ta. Ka. Kekatunk. Ta. E. Sa. 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 E. Ya. Yak. Ga. Gooch. Ka. Cost. Ka. Incheyi. Kha. Khasha. Kha. Ah.
Going back to the Y in parentheses, does that mean, that one was said in Yakutat?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The Y said Yakutat?
Yeah. So Y is Yakutat, T is Teslin, A is Atlan, C is Carcross. Those are the ones that are marked because usually that's the different dialects. You're getting.
Isn't there also a Janu?
Yes, there's a Janu and there's a Jun. So Janu would be Teslin, and then Jun would be Carcross.
I didn't notice in this, in this was the last one, that there was any key to explain what the Y or the T or the C meant before you brought it up in this context.
That's a good
So,
question.
that might be a note to add
Okay.
in the next edition.
Well, we still have a little bit of time, so I
Oh,
can.
what do you do?
I could make that change.
Good, so I looked back.
It'll have to be tonight.
Check to see if there was anything.
Oh, okay.
Pages that said anything about this, what Y means, it's the T means, the C means, and I was thinking, maybe Y means Yukon, maybe Y means, habitat, maybe T, so I was like, trying to guess what it was.
Y means you hung. I was kidding. I will.
So anyway,
work
might
on
be
that.
something flip somewhere.
Let's change.
Before you get to that page, before these pages.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out. Oh, there's gouache. There it is. We looked into the future earlier by punching people in the face. Okay. Gua. Guasha. Kwa. On Quayi. Okay. Wanachsaya katut ke with the yishaya on Quayi. Dachadushu yagi away yawahi. We ingenen on kla hu away wuna. Keshashata hanich ustiqwa. Atre hechwasaku. Datachsoyach tundetanio ata. So, I don't want to get anybody mad across the pond, but why are the flags at half mast when the Queen of England died? Like, oh, is it for the Queen? Like all over town?
I was wondering that, 'cause I just noticed.
I was wondering the same thing.
It was also just 9/11.
It was 9/11.
I thought it was for Don Young, but maybe
Don
that.
Young? That was so long ago, wasn't it?
I know, but I was trying to. That was
It was
the last.
probably for 9/11. That makes way
Okay.
more sense.
Yeah.
Lance Mackey.
It's for the Queen.
I think it's for the Queen. I bet you when she gets buried, they all go back up. Which I think it's been a week. And I'm not trying to make
Why?
anybody mad, but would we do this if like the president of Mongolia died?
I don't know. These are like fighting words. No.
Okay. Back to, back to sound practice.
Kunle,
Uh,
you're not wrong.
Can we
and
Google this?
they're gonna put him back up after interment.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but
Somebody's gonna say to you, "Yakukwas."
yep. They're gonna buy a plane ticket. There's gonna be all these people coming from London over to here. But
She's
then I'll
like
be
the
like,
matriarch of genocide of indigenous people all over the world, and we're lowering flags for her.
see, they'll come over here to
Yes.
fight me, but then I'll trick them into learning Tlingit. Ha 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 ha. That's not wrong. That's probably a lot of people who are like, yeah, our whole life is messed up now. Okay, but it's not just her. Okay, fine. Okay. All right, we'll get through these and we'll take a break. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zis. Khwasta. Ga. Un. Z. Poach. Poach. Huck. A taste. I used to have a different picture for pitcher, and there are like lemons in it, and someone's like, "Is that like lemon juice?" I was like, "No." Kat. On. Poina. Oops, I think I'm missing something.
So Nemo's name is Hot. That's how we say Nemo.
Well, okay, so I used to have a picture of a salmon here, and I used to teach us. So, okay, I'm sure some of you have done this before. Everybody, close your eyes. Now, when I say this word in English, think of what it is and think of what it looks like. Okay, ready? Tree. What kind of tree did you just picture? Maple?
Oak.
Oak?
Alder.
Alder. Yeah.
Alder,
Yan.
Yun. So I bet you a lot of people would think of a tree from an area where they grew up at. But there's a lot of words that sort of mean something, like tree, fish, bird. But then if you said it to someone, they have this sort of default image sometimes. For me, ḵat, I was always taught that that was a salmon. So I said ḵat is fish, but if you say it to a Tlingit, they'll think of a salmon. But then I went and taught in Teslin, and they said, no, we wouldn't. We think of a trout. So then I thought, well, there's this thing called a salmon trout head. Is that why? And so I went with Nemo. So that there wouldn't be any fight over that.
I was wondering something really similar to this, because I realized that eek and hoots, those are two different words for two different kinds of bear.
Mhm.
But what if you just wanted to talk about bears in general? Is there a third word for bear that is more like bear generic? Or broader, or if you want to even talk about, like, say, polar bear, like, well, what is the word?
Hoots is the default there.
Oh, really?
Because if something gets named, like the name of a polar bear is Hintaghuzi, the brown bear in the water. And then there's some other things too, but they were both obviously here, both obviously important. But then there is a third word for bears, but it's used more like it's the one you use when you're in the woods, because when you're in the woods, don't say the word hoots. Instead, anybody know what you say?
You say Shan Wuhan Hashik Kuhas.
You can say Hashit Kohas when you're praying to them, you call them an ancestor. And you can also, if you need to talk about them, you say Yatsinate, which means a living thing. Because if you say hoots, they will come and visit you. That's Tlingit Kundatani. But there are some things that are like that, where it's like, this is kind of the default one.
Say yes, yes, no.
Yatsinate. Yatsinate. And, oops, I'm missing everything in the chat room. Sorry, folks, I didn't have it open. Let me go back, okay. So going back, let's do the Jinwu, Janu, and Jun. And then we have queen stuff, okay, trees. All right, so Tlingit spellers, don't look it up. How would I spell Yatsinate?
YATSEEN hyphen EIT.
Yatsinate. All low. All low. And here's a tip. If you have vowel and ut, you're going to end up with 8. All those words, Shayate, Yanaate, all those clan names, something, Adi, Wadi, they all got ut at the end. So there are cases, like when we talk about this vowel shift, but sometimes you have this vowel encountering this vowel. Tlingit will not allow two vowels to just run into each other. Like when I was learning Hawaiian, I was like, y'all just like run the vowels together? And they said, yeah. It's like, y'all crazy. And they're not crazy, as I have fun with them. Okay.
What's the literal translation for?
Oh, so this is how it works. Yeah. Seen. Well, it's probably this. Oops. So yatsini at. So this is your classifier. And when I note the classifier, this is what I like to do, just so you know what you're looking at. Put a period, begin parentheses, then it will have, if there's a D in the classifier, I'll mark it. If not, I'll mark the group. This is a 0 group classifier, comma. If there's an I in the classifier, I'll mark it, and there is. So that tells you 0 group plus I. We'll get to what all of that means. But it just means, for now, it just means it is that way. Okay. So you got your classifier. This means to be alive. Anybody hear the name Tkatsin? Anybody hear that name before? Okay, so that's, we're gonna come to that. This is the suffix that goes onto a verb. It's called attributive. It means it's turning the verb into an adjective. So yatzin means alive. Yatzini, a living thing. Yatzini at, a living thing. And then you have thing, period, parentheses, 4th person, non-human, independent. We'll get to all of that, but just so that you see these in the beginning Tlingit workbook, you'll see them in Hausani Chayuchatangi, you'll see them in the dictionary. It all refers back to this stuff to say, what type of thing is it? Because then you can see how the parts work. And then you can learn how to put together compound nouns. You can learn how to do this. So if you need to name something like pickle, you could say kashesuchu askatu yikieni, even though people want to fight me over that one. But that's fine. I think it's funny. It's a sour sea cucumber in the woods, which I think is hilarious. But okay, I understand people have their problems. Okay, we won't do the whole thing. Lake, little, in a cavity, alive. Refers to a frog that freezes in the lake or pond, and it's still alive because it'll thaw out and then just start hopping around, crawling around, whatever it is. Okay, we're almost there. ḳoon, na,
No.
ḳot, ḳeq, shanakhwayi,
No. Mhm.
punch, ḳwat, nekh, yana eid, hit, yana hwain. That is very unusual to have HW, but you can have it. Okay, take 5. Come back. We'll move into.
What was going dipping?
Oh, what's that?
Was that going dipping?
It's they are waiting. Someone is waiting in the water, or in the act of dog paddle swimming.
Okay. Cheese.
Okay, back in 5. Let me pause it. Zoom. Okay, we had a question about the face. So the face is, it's a face of a person. So you can say, yeah, that's my face. But it can also be a vertical surface of something, right? So any sort of cliff, any sort of, we talked about like a mountain, shak would be where it starts to turn up. Shada would be the lower part of the mountain. It means around the mountain. Shayada around the face of the mountain, that's where it starts to get pretty steep. Shaya is getting really close to the top. Now you almost have to crawl to get to the top, usually with a lot of mountains. And then shaki on the head of the mountain. So what you're going to see when we get deeper into body parts, there's two things you're going to notice: that body parts have body parts, and that the land has body parts, right? Which this is common in a bunch of languages, right? Like you can go to the head of the trail or whatever, right? We still say head and foot and all these other different things. So ya will change the shape when you start putting suffixes on it. We're going to get to this point where we start learning about what a suffix is, what it does, how it changes these things. But there's a bunch of things you're going to find, like to go towards the face, go through it, to be at it, yet, yawu, yak, ya, yak. So you'll see how all of these things work. You'll also see that the word ya pops up on the front of a whole bunch of verbs. So when you say yachwadla, or you say ye yawaka, that ya that you're hearing in the front also has to do with either a vertical surface or a face. That's why you say yachwakwash, I hit them in the face, right? Because the face is right on there, right? So you can put nouns onto verbs. We're going to learn how these things work. There's a lot to it, but we're going to the top of the mountain. Good question. Yeah, so yak. So you could say sha yak ichat iti. I'm on the face of the mountain. Okay, good question. All right. We are going to move kind of quickly through this chapter. I do want to acknowledge Shkate, Jesse Johnny, for sharing these words. I went to record her. It was the last time I think I did record her. And I just asked her, what do Tlingit language speakers need to hear? It's a longer recording. It's on YouTube. It's one of the first YouTube videos that I put up. But then she hits this kind of chant at the end. And she said, Yigo ayach ḳoon, yishif kohascha, yichait haswasi achidat. Yigo ayach ḳoon, qodneich tu aditse. Yigo ayach ḳoon, huhan aya, hashish kohas, haste itchyan tu at. Yigo ayach ḳoon, shtakat yuhan. I want to thank Jeff Lear and Cheshi Will Geiger for helping to listen closely and to hear some of these things and what she was saying. It's a little bit different than the first edition in terms of parsing out what's being said. We won't go over all the pieces. They are here. If you take a look at stuff and want to ask a question, there is one other thing that's different in the second edition. I won't get in the details of it, but we're using these angle brackets to say, instead of looking at what these individual parts are, that's a hortative. And we'll do the same thing with, there's a progressive verb, there's a perfective, there's a future. And you're going to have to learn some of this stuff in terms of what it is, what it's doing. We're going to get there. Okay. We're just going to say some names of things. We'll say them once, move on. Atdayi. Tas. Shawat. Ah. In. Te. Saved. Shayi. Dekitkiya. Hit. Ayauditi. Keys. Nukshiyan. Gut. Wushyayi. Una. Yai. Yao. E. Seal. Nu. Yana eight. Yak. Saknain. Cheech. Da. I had a dream about Da just the other night. I was in the dream, I was in the basement and my wife was there, and there was a very large Da just flopping around. And I turned to her, I said, hey, we got one of those now. And she goes, we don't have one of those. And then I woke up. I was like, what a weird reaction.
I had a dream about Seek last night. I was in a really long house and there were two of them. They were in the bathroom. We were trying to get them out of the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Dreams about animals. Okay. Gao. Heen. Janwu. Janu. Jun. Jinwu. Sasan Karkros Yakatan. Okay, I will make the notes. Cocaine. Nusk. Sock. Shaw. Tia. Wasus. Yak. Sa. Okay, I have a better understanding of how this works. When you say sa for dasaya, Tlingit sa, wasa, all those things, it is the verb to name it. Okay, so we usually, a lot of us know, like, you khatu sa, my name, right? But if I said ye uwasa, for example, let me check my messages real quick. So I could say K, well, let me use a note, the way one can see it. And this is an inside look at how things also get named. If we don't have a name for something, we have processes to come up with names. So I'm going to change this a little bit. Okay. K atukji at. K atukji at. That is a plunger for the toilet. It is the thing that makes the water squirt up. K atukji at. So why did I think of this? Oh, and so I'd say K atukji at ye ubasa anyashahash. So if I said that, right? So let's go back to the notes. Okay. So if I say, so I got this word K at tukji at. Those are two. K atukji at. Then I could say you do a sock plunger. And how do I translate that? K atukji at, you do a sock plunger. How would I write that in English? What I just said in Tlingit.
Toilet plunger is named plunger?
Yeah, or is called K atukji. Right, so we'd switch the words around, right? So we'll just use the Tlingit here. But now if I say K atukji at ye wasa an yashahash. But that K atukji at ye wasa an yashahash. Anybody know how that one would work?
Anya Shahash called it the thing that makes the water squirt up.
Yes, so named, right? So you could say Yechat Uwasa. And now you're talking about somebody who named you, right? So I could say Khoneaya Aksai, Khone Yechat Uwasa, Du Ani Kau Danuk, Yechat Uwasa, Achkak Klein Kuch, Klech Duhain, Yuchat uwasa you. Yuchat uwasa anyatlahash. So my name is ḳoon. Johnny Marks named me Duani Kaudanuk. Sam Johnston named me Klechduhin. Right? So this is talking about who named the act of the naming. Right? So when you come back to this little particle, sa, you're saying it's a command form. Name it. Name it. And that could be saying like it doesn't have a name, so give it a name. And I could have thought of something fun. Okay, and that also could say, like, say the name of it, right? That could also be what it's saying, right? Is a focus particle, and this is where we're getting like aya, awe, right? The little teeny part. Sometimes the thing about particles is sometimes when you look at them on their own, it's not the most helpful thing all the time, right? And we've been talking about this with like cha and ch. With those two particles, I would say don't worry about what it means. Just say that's one that really likes to grab onto a word right after it, and those two create meaning. So it's almost like cha and ch. I've heard them be used sometimes on their own, but it's very rare. They usually couple up with something else.
Isn't the like that too? Because when you add it after something.
Yeah, because it doesn't, you don't usually just say, someone just say, like what? So, but this does pop up after things. And in some cases, when you say aya, awe, ayu, ahe. This one you hear a lot when people get their name. So if we are going to name, we already did plunger, right? So let's say we had to bring this plunger out in front of the people. We put $20 on it. Hey, atuchji at So the would come right after, and that's not part of the name, right? Like if someone gets a name, right? That is saying like it's just providing focus to what was said. Or you hear people say chish and it just sort of says look back at that thing or listen back. Right?
The way that King Reste, David Kasich explained it to me, like when you say chish or he says it means absolutely, emphatically, without a doubt. Chish. You're putting all of that extra emphasis on the word that it comes before it. And I think he used an example of like Tlingit or like, absolutely, emphatically, without a doubt. Tlingit. So that's the way that, I don't know, I might be remembering that other one.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, because
that's the way he described it to me, is you're putting all of that extra emphasis.
Right. So you could say yeah, you could say yeah, and you could say away. So like you hear these things, like the subtleties of these, right? And I guess I'll throw this one on here too. So what this is talking about, these things, one thing you don't want to happen, if someone is speaking in Tlingit and if it's an important moment, and we'll take the pressure out of there. It's not a funeral, it's not a pu'i, but let's say there's some cultural moment where someone stands up to talk and they are just really hitting you, right? Like for example, one time ḵulagaaw Cyril George was up there talking, and I was sitting behind Nora Dowenhauer, and she goes, "It's poetry." And she was so excited. You could hear that emotion and how excited she was. But they're both the same moiety, so all she could really do is quietly just be in awe of what he was doing. But if someone was there who was his clan opposite, if they were Kagwantan, if they were Duktawedi, then they might say, "Ye away," or "Ayach away." And there are little differences between these. Ye away is like, that is how it is. Ayach away, that is correct. Those are very similar things. Very similar things. Ye away, ayach away. But then if we put these onto other sort of, if we put a verb on there, and then if you said, so if I said, Ye awecha saku, what I'm telling you is, that is how I know it. So if I'm telling you a story or something, and I'll say, that's how I know it, because that's how I heard it. But if there's a little bit of contention about what's going on, and if I think I know, and you got to be careful with some of this stuff. Now, if you said, Ayachawe chwasaku, you're saying, I know it correctly. But sometimes, you know, there are situations where you might have to sort of affirm that. If there's a little bit of disagreement, and or like people are just sort of remembering something, and let's take the pressure off of it. This isn't some big clan history. This isn't the birth of Raven. This is just like, was that thing $14? And and then someone says, no, that was $34. But if you knew it was, say, the price was set at $14, right? Or whatever the thing was, right? Awe is used more in storytelling to say, oh, how do we usually translate that one? And it is so. And then we move on to something else. Right? And yeah is short for like, I would say something like that. That's the way. Okay. Okay. So what is this illustration showing us? Somebody tell me, because I forgot.
Objects in relation to the space around the speaker.
Yes, right. So space in relation only to whom, to the speaker, right? Just to the speaker. So you have ya, he, we, you. Right here, here, over there, way over there. That's how they work. They are also time markers. So ya could be right now. You could be long time ago, long time from now. We is just sort of in kind of all over the place. So ya, he, we, you. These will combine with stuff like this. Dasa ya. And then, so this is a bunch of question and answer stuff. Awe. Dasa we, aya. What is that? This is. What is this? That is. The one you use depends on where it is in relation to you if you're talking, right? Gusu, yadu, heidu, weidu. Right, so it's right here, it's here, it's over there, you do, it's way over there. Ge or ge, if you're in Tesla or Carcross, is a yes or no question marker. And as we start to look at how this works, just remember, it does not go at the end. Sometimes it's at the end, but that's not, you don't put it at the end of a sentence, like a question mark. Where does it go? It goes after whatever is asking about, right? So it can move, right? And there's certain situations where it wants to be in a certain spot, right? So for example, Iat ashat du tukane. What does that say? What is this? Iat ashat du tukane. What does that say? Any parts?
Is it your aunt is picking up your baby? Holding?
And there's no question here, right? This is,
Catching for
this
like,
is the sentence. Iat ashat du tukane. And it's her baby because there's nothing else is given here, right? So then the de must refer to her, right? So we could take the same sentence and we go here. And if I put ge right there, what is it asking?
is your aunt, your paternal aunt holding her baby?
Yeah, is that your paternal aunt holding her baby? Right? So then, what's that asking? Oops, you can't use two, sorry.
Is she holding her baby?
Yeah, and so for the English, you might say, your aunt, comma, is she holding her baby? Right? You'd have to word it a little differently, I think, for English, right? And then we could say, oh, move it over here. I think you'd say, for Tlingit, you'd probably change, now you'd have to change the word order. And these are questions, right? So now it's saying, is that her baby she's holding? Right? So like the ge can move around. And sometimes that will trigger the other components to move around. So like when I say components, like dutukane is a thing, ge is a thing, ashat is a thing, iat is a thing. When they teach Hawaiian, they say it's he'e, it's nak, it's an octopus. It has these tentacles and they can move around. Tlingit is the same way. The most important information comes first. That's why when you're asking about the baby, now the baby's got to be the first thing in the sentence, or else it just sounds kind of weird. Okay. That's the intermediate level of looking at how get works. And sometimes it depends on the verb, right? So you can say this. And what is that? It would quick get.
Are you tired?
That's right. And there's only one right answer. No, let's keep going. I'm just kidding. Okay. Are you tired? Right? But if I had this, okay, that's not a question, right? As a statement, what is this saying?
I'm sleepy.
It's not a question. You are sleepy. Where am I going to put the get? This one, it has to go in a certain spot.
Get itawaha.
So any of those, there's a whole bunch of things that start with eat, right? I'll show you a list of them. And I'll show you another resource. And don't worry, if you haven't done this before, don't worry. We will work on all of this stuff. Just remember, get goes in a certain location and it comes right after the thing that you're asking. So sometimes it takes a while. And sometimes I think there are ones where there's multiple ways. So I could say, and I could say, I think those are the two acceptable ways to say that myself. Someone might want to fight with me, but hinge ituasaku, hine tuakesaku. You could probably say hine tuasaku ge. Probably works. Wouldn't be mad at that. Okay, let's try it now. Cake or kike. Then here's the get right there. So what happens? Here's another little sound thing. You are going to see this. The Tlingit has a bunch of stuff where it's like, it's there, but then once you learn how to see it, you'll see it all over the place. If I have get, if I take that vowel away, it turns into a K. There are other situations where this happens. This will happen in verb prefixes. There's a little thing that goes ga. And if I take the letter A out of it, it becomes a K. Like all those future forms, ḳulagaaw, ḳulagaaw, right? And so in that case, like a G can become a K. We see it goes both directions. So what happens here is when you have ge, ya, for contracting it, and some things when you put them together, they have to contract, right? Like in English, like if English had these rules, if someone said cannot, be like, bro, you gotta say can't. You can't say cannot, right? So, but in English, a lot of it's optional. But in Tlingit, there's times when you don't say ageya. Ageya, people wouldn't know, I don't think, what you're talking about. But to say, is this akya? Is that akwe? Akyu. Okay. Questions? Everybody okay? Okay, let's finish these. Seek, Dana, Kawut, Dis, Keshish, On, Niche, Gish, Gun, Cast, Shayet, Sha, Yi, At. That's why you get Yate. Keat, Ton, Yain, Gooch, Nadak, Kushta, Douche, Kutiya, Kanest, Kahak, Shakiat, Naat, Jaji, Kajin, Shao, Shayena, Hawaii, Tana, Yukaut. Everybody know what an oot is on its own? Yes. Yes, the sucker of an octopus. Okay. Okay. So we are going to retire chapter 1. We're not coming back to it. This is how we're going to do it. Okay, we did that. Next chapter. Okay, and we're going to go through them kind of fast because it's a review, but also you got a question about anything that's in there. So like over the weekend, look at the second edition, it's online, of the Beginning Tlingit workbook and get through the next 2 chapters because we'll be doing those next week. We might even get to the one after that. We'll see what kind of pace we take. We're not in any big, huge hurry, but we are trying to get to, and if you got questions about some of this other stuff, we'll jump ahead to it and then we'll also get ourselves to it. But this is what we're going to do with a little bit more detailed explanation, including we'll start now with talking about how to ask questions. So we kind of touched on this on Tuesday. Okay, we're not going to do that. So, but just looking at this, the yeah part on here, right? So here's a place name. I don't think there's a high tone. Anach ya andagan yeah. Anach ya andagan yeah. So like it's often translated as the place where the sun shines first. And I think there's a little bit of extra information that's just, I think it has a bunch of that stuff too. There's a story, very intense story. We'll probably take a look at it at some point. It's a really intense story. It's called the one-horned goat, or it's called ḵulagaaw. And when we were talking to Nora, we said, okay, we know this story. We read the version. Well, we don't know it very well, but we read this version that was told by David Kadishan. But why is it called the one-horned goat? Because we read the whole story. There was no one-horned goat. There is in the longer version of it, which we didn't know at the time. Her answer was, because of the one-horned goat. So we're like, okay, got it. Okay, moving right along. Right? So sometimes there's like additional information that's not always encoded in the actual language, right? Like katzin, it does mean alive in the little lake, right? Or alive in the pond. Anachya andaganya. The place where the sun starts to shine.
Is that in Douglas, or is there a place like that on Douglas?
Yes, that's where the Douglas Boat Harbor is. And we should have that name fully restored, because there's a bunch of stuff over there named after individuals. And I think there's nothing wrong with these people. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But like, who is Mendenhall? I'm going on a little tangent to wrap things up. Who is Mendenhall? Somebody tell me about Mendenhall, because there's the glacier, the river. There's so much Mendenhall stuff in Juneau that I was buying something off of Craigslist, and the guy said, I'm out on Mendenhall Peninsula Road or something. So it's like Mendenhall Peninsula Road, Mendenhall Boulevard, Mendenhall Avenue, Mendenhall Mall, Mendenhall Glacier, Mendenhall Lake,
Some white dude.
Mendenhall.
Yeah, that.
The little flat top, right?
Mendenhall River.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with the dude, as far as I could tell. But as far as I could tell, has never set foot in this community, like ever. With some scientists who probably did cool stuff. Great. Why you gotta have your name all over the place? So I do think we got to get back to using our names and restoring them, finding a way out of this thing, right? Because like, yeah, you want to rent any state cabin, it's always going to be named after some white guy. That's just how this stuff works. And I think we could name those cabins after the places where they are. And then we'll start to learn these names. So the place, Chukanani, that's that place where people go hunt ducks. Like right around this time of year, they'll be shooting off in the mornings. People walk their dogs out there. Ha Shuyi, that's where the airport is. That's the river that comes out from that big glacier here. That glacier's name is Tak Sit. The glacier inland from the little lake. That little lake is called Ak. There's a stream that comes out of it called Qatini. There's a place over there called Anshkashtu. And so some of these things, like even things that are like Ak, Rek, Ak, Nu, those are so close to the Tlingit names that we can say, oh, well, it's Ak, Nu, the fort of the little lake.
I
Okay,
always laugh about how Auk Lake is Little Lake Lake.
right? Just cut the lake off. But so some of these things I think could be spelling corrections, right? Oh, you say Auk Lake? Oh, we'll just fix the spelling. Auk. Oops, we chopped the lake off, right? So, but anyways, think about it over the weekend.
Anakya Andaganye, the place the sun shines along.
Yeah.
And so now that means we've been translating it incorrectly, as with the place where the sun rays hit first or touch first is what we've been translating it to. Oh, Anna.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
you put yeah. Okay,
I
so
wouldn't.
we've been using Anakya Andaganye And this is really important because this also has to do with our school, which we know as Juneau Montessori School, and the healing work that they have been doing. And they've got their kids saying Anachya Andaganye. I mean, they're like,
Good.
it's adorable. They're 3 years old, they're speaking it. And there's all sorts of great stuff that's going to happen by next May with that location. And I would like to tell you also that we did approach the city to try and change that area name back and was rejected. So we were told because of the land acknowledgement issues that were happening during that time, but go get them.
Yeah, that's a terrible excuse. So a lot of times they'll
It was
say,
horrible. Yeah.
they'll say, oh, we'd love to, but the people are fighting over what it is. And so let's clarify this. One, Anach Ya Andaganye. That is the name of the place, right? Anach Ya Andaganye. That is how you say it. It's how it goes. Ye Andagan on its own. So I'm going to take the capital letters off. This means the sun is shining. Ya Andagan means the sun has broken through. Right? So they are similar but different. So the reason why I think I'm fine with that translation, and I think that translation works, and I'm not the authority on that thing anyways, but the reason why people have translated it like that is because Anach Ya Andaganya, I could also say the place where the sun breaks through the clouds. So that also, like, place where the sun first shines, that works as well. Right, but as far as
We've
like
been saying the place where the sun rays hit first.
and that's fine. I've heard that. I heard that from Bill Fawcett, Kushtako Ish, who could speak. He's not alive anymore, but I'll probably never be able to speak Tlingit as well as he can, as well as he could. So I think that's a perfectly fine translation. And these are some things too where we want to be real careful to say we're looking at how the Tlingit works, but that doesn't mean we're saying that what's over there is wrong. Because with a lot of place names, it's like what I was saying with that one-horned goat, sometimes there's a bunch more information that you need to get before you understand how that name works. But people, if we start saying, oh yeah, well, it's this or that, there are some colonizers who will use that and say, oh, no, we can't change it because they can't even agree. Can't even agree. We know about Savico. We know all about Savico, right? And so they're always, not everybody, but there are some people who are always looking for a reason to not embrace a re-indigenization of the land. And we just got to sort of be ready for that. And part of that being ready is saying, we know what's going on over here, and we can talk about it all we want. But when we go forward to them, we present a united front.
Okay.
Chish.
Finish you. I'm reading Rasha's comment.
Oh, right. Yeah, there are some anti-indigenous people in this town. But
Oh yeah.
Hasyak Wadlok, Hasyagach Tudlok. There you go. We will defeat them. Okay. Gonna cheese, folks. Remember, look at the next 2 chapters in the beginning of your workbook with the mentality of saying, could I teach this to a single person that I'm good friends with who doesn't know Tlingit yet? Okay, gonna cheese.
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 Ah,
Dear Hasatin.
yeah, what team?